Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next The Dawn of Yangchen chapter analysis video. This one's going to be for chapter 7, The Visitor. So we ended up the last chapter with Yangchen arriving at Kavik's house, which is particularly notable because, of course, he had lied to her about not having a family, and here she is, turn up at his house. So there's a sense of like, okay, why exactly is she here? Is she upset about being lied to? It seems like she sort of sent him on his way. Does this matter? And so we get into it here. The overall thing of why exactly is she here? And then just the fun that she sort of has in a way, playing with Kavik, given that she is going to dominate this scene as we see. So Kavik's mother opens the door and she is like shocked, like the Avatar is here. And Yangchen just plays it really cool, just like, I didn't mean to put you out. She's immediately like ushered in, like she is a celebrity 100%. And there's even a line right here at the start. She just mentions that you have a lovely house, she said, wielding the compliment like a club against Kavik. May I? Because he didn't just say like he didn't have a family. He said that like he's struggling to kind of like make ends meet. So the fact that he actually lives in one of the biggest houses in the area is just a sense of like double, triple lie basically here. So there's a little bit of a discussion here about, like she's like, don't make too big of a fuss. Like I just want to have a talk here. Maybe consider this a visit of alms. Maybe that would work. This gets brought up a few times in the book, and it's basically just the idea that this is a common thing with air nomads, that because they're so respected, there's this kind of typical thing where there's a certain like honor to just sort of bringing like an air nomad into your home, feeding them, letting them stay the night, and it's considered this sort of like act of kind of goodwill, charity, a visit of alms basically. So she's just like, maybe just treat this kind of normal, like an air nomad type thing. But Kavik kind of notes that the second they realized she was the Avatar, his parents were going to roll out the red carpet basically, because they probably would have done the same thing for an air nomad as well. So that's pretty fun. Kavik the whole time is just kind of like, okay, I'm not going to make the first move here. He's just really cautious about, I'll let Yangchen decide how this is going to go and react to that, rather than me saying something and make it look like I'm lying. So he's very suspicious about how exactly this is going to happen. There's a fun little scene here right at the start as well, where the dinner is being prepared, and right as it's being sort of handed to Yangchen, Kavik's father is just like, no, don't eat that. There's meat in the stew. Because she's an air nomad, and they just can't do that. Yangchen does say, interestingly though, that the Western temple believes we're allowed to consume meat if that's what's available for sharing. Some of us still abstain, but it's a choice. There's no harm done. They still kind of don't want to go ahead with that, so she's just kind of like, I'll eat around the meat. And they kind of just reluctantly kind of accept that that is how this is going to happen. Interestingly, she asks, is it just the three of you, as in Kavik's mother, Kavik's father, and Kavik himself? And we know it's technically true, but obviously it's a lie because of Kalyan and him being gone in some way. And the parents don't answer. They kind of leave it to Kavik to answer, and he's kind of like, yes, it's just the three of us. We don't have many guests these days. So why is she here? And she just says, I'm here in the city on Avatar business, but to best serve the people, I need to talk to them directly, learn about their lives firsthand. So she asked the family to tell them about themselves. So we get a little bit of a general backstory on, the whole situation, which helps to explain, more of the whole White Water Tribe family living in an Earth Kingdom city dynamic. So they were originally from the Long Stretch region west of Agna Kel-A, that is the capital of the Northern Water Tribe, so west of the capital. Normally a land rich with access to fishing grounds and roaming herds, but an extended spate of bad hunting seasons and poor catches led them to seek options. So that is the more detailed explanation for why they left the north and came down because the build-up of the Shang city was seen as something where you can make a life for yourself. Encouraged by distant relations who had already crossed the straits, they came to Bin-Er to ride out the hard times. The Shang system was still in its infancy back then, so the city was smaller and security wasn't so tight. The family set up in the Water Tribe quarter, where some of their neighbors were former hunting partners. This is where we get the whole idea of this place, Nukingax, that was mentioned before, that Kavik used to work in. Specifically, it's Nukingax and partners, which is where most of their colleagues and their current neighbors were working. That it's an all Water Tribe shop that also is like a counting house, because of course the Shang cities are trade cities effectively, so it's very important for them to get trade numbers right, and so people are hired from the Water Tribe as well to double triple check those numbers, because it's noted that the Water Tribe people have a good reputation because of his folks' long memories and boundless patience. So that's sort of like, you know, the employment of his parents, basically. So they say that this was 5 years ago, and they would love to go back to the north. They know, like, every stinking day we think about going back, but it's impossible to get real exit passes. The control office is so corrupt these days, you can only get clearance if it benefits the Shangs somehow. They're able to bring in as many workers as they want into Bin-Er, but if you try to leave, suddenly you're a security risk. So this is more of the big issue here, of like the control that they have here, that the Shang cities are operating sort of autonomously in a way, and they're allowed to sort of in a way like keep the people in there unless they have a good reason to leave. So it kind of begs the question of like, oh, how did like Kalyan even get out if it's so tricky to even get passes to get out? So that is interesting. They do note that they've been the lucky ones. The city has changed so much while we've been here. The newer arrivals, I don't know. The Shangs discard them like scraps at whim. Kavik brings up the riot that was basically just about to happen earlier on, which is actually news to Yangchen that things are this bad in the city. So there is that. She does note that this is what she sort of wants to change, and they all do actually believe she does want to change. But he sort of challenges her on this by saying, you know, it's nice to want things, like to want to make change. So it's a bit of a challenge here. And it's the first time that he's really sort of spoken out in all of this, because Yangchen has very much been in control. So this is where she turns her attention back to Kavik here. And she's like, your son, as delightful as this visit has been, he's the real reason I'm here. Did he tell you what he did earlier? And it's just noted the air went deathly quiet. And so, you know, because they're so respectful of the Avatar, this is like the Avatar's almost accusing him of doing something, and they're like, Kavik, what did you do? So Yangchen is actually the first one to speak up. He stopped a thief for me. So okay, she's giving him the out here, but obviously she's letting him run with the next stage of the story. Like she basically just says, he stopped a thief for me. Explain it, Kavik. So, how good of a liar are you? And he just says, you know, well, I was just hanging around the square earlier on, like I told you before. And then I was walking along the edge of the crowd, and I saw this man running away from some guards. He was holding a satchel in his hands, which was weird. Normally, you'd sling it around your shoulder, right? So he's like, kind of like, okay, I didn't get in his way. I just sort of like grabbed it off him as he ran past me, and I handed it back to the guards. And Yangchen at this point cuts in and is like, and in doing so, your son helped with some very important political Avatar related business. This is a very important piece of information. He really helped us out here. So you know, very very interesting the way they just kind of like team up to give this story. And it's sort of I suppose a test in a way of Kavik here, of just like, okay, let's see how good of a liar you are. Can you go along with this story completely on the fly? He then asked the question, how did you actually find out where I live? Because you know, based on the story, he didn't meet Yangchen, so how did you find me? And she's just like, oh, I saw some witnesses, described what you looked like, they instantly recognized that description, and I found my way here. So there's that. She then is just kind of like, can I, to his parents, kind of like, did you mind if I talk to Kavik alone? And they're like, oh, absolutely, 100%. So she goes into his room. She immediately notes that, like, you sleep in a completely bare room with nothing on the walls, no furniture other than the bed. A man with nothing to hide. You'd fit in well at the temple. And so this is where, like, they talk a bit more honestly about things. You followed me. I did. Most people forget to look up. So she was gliding along, actually following him the whole way through. She does compliment him on his moves of, like, you know, shaking a tail, basically, ultimately. But does say, you know, pretty low of you to lie to me the way you did when so many people in this city are living on the edge. From what I can tell, you have a loving family and a roof over your head. And even notes, you know, I mean, there's a full second story on this house. You're a rich kid. And he's like, not that rich. And there's a little world building note here of just that, like, Kavik muttered, fully conscious that he was using the same defense the merchants used when they turned down Mama Yurnarak, her requests for donations. So just the idea that, like, oh, you can run this kitchen without our help, so you can run it, so you don't actually need the help. That sort of logic, which isn't particularly great. But she notes, not that poor. I followed you to see which Shang you were reported to. Imagine my surprise to find you had a separate little base of your own. Your parents don't know the full extent of your activities. And she asked the question, why are you running these errands when, you know, otherwise most of the Water Tribe people actually can do a pretty good job just working at Nukingaks and being bookkeepers and not need to put themselves into danger? He doesn't give a full answer. He's just like, I value my freedom. So everything related to Kalyan and the whole idea that that is kind of fundamentally why he's doing the errand running isn't being told. And it's even the one thing, like, the parents don't even say to Yangchen. The one thing that they also want to sort of keep from her as well. So very, very intriguing stuff overall. So the chapter ends with... you know, just in response to this, you know, I value my freedom. And Yangchen just says, well, that's too bad. And she says the common phrase known about Bin-Er, everyone you meet in Bin-Er is in someone else's pocket. Now I finally have the answer. You know, it says, from the moment you appeared, I was trying to figure out whose pocket you were in. Now I finally have the answer. Mine. Now you're in mine. So effectively, to interpret that, obviously, she wants to use Kavik as her errand runner, which makes sense, of course. Like, she's here to sort of negotiate with the Shangs, so she wants one of the more notable independent you know, spies, informants. And from her interactions, she obviously is kind of like, okay, I can do business with this guy. So it's obviously a bit of a, like, huh? Like, for Kavik, like, he's gone through, like, a roller coaster these last couple of chapters. Like, all these kind of meetings, thinks he gets away from the Avatar, she pops up again, they have to do this kind of lie back and forth thing together, and then ending with the idea that, like, the Avatar wants to, like, hire me to do this job. What? So just this... the crazy events of this day just get even crazier for Kavik. And obviously it's pretty fun. Like, this continues directly into the next chapter as well, which is pretty fun as well. So you can see that, like, a lot of these chapters have just been very much laser focused on building up the dynamic, the sort of banter between these two characters, from you know, Avatar and Thief, to, you know, oh, they actually have a conversation together, she lets him away, shows that she's reasonable, but realizes, like, he was lying to her. And then the scene here, and, you know, it's a nice kind of continuation, and Kavik is just kind of thinking to himself, like, in a way, what did I do to deserve this? But it's a interesting opportunity in a way. So we'll see what his reaction is, I suppose, in the following chapter. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on chapter 7. But that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.